Back in 1996, the film director Baz Luhrmann used guns, pop music, and transvestite drug users to fool teenagers around the world into watching a movie written by stuffy old Shakespeare, something only considered previously by their fathers 2 decades before, looking to catch a glimpse of Olivia Hussey's rack. Shakespeare was suddenly cool as the zeitgeist realised that behind the legend was a man, and behind the rough hose and garters of dreaded productions forced upon them at school were some pretty damn fine stories. Aside from the tranny, druggy, poppy gunnies, Baz had managed this by casting stars who were young, pretty and talented. Unfortunately, the directors of the slew of teen spear movies which followed didn't quite use this same formula, and it wasn't long before I wondered why, if Cis Quo is allowed to chew the scenery and butcher the bard's lines, why can't I? Well, now I too can call my fellow a juggling cankerblossom, marry my nuncle, and swear by my troth with the aid of Forsooth, a tabletop story game for 2, 3, 4, 5, or as many players as you can fit around a table. Unlike Love in the Time of Seath, where you're provided with a setting and characters ready to go, in Forsooth you get to create these yourself based on a few tables where you can choose or randomly select from some Shakespeareanly appropriate options to set where your story will take place. Character creation is equally straightforward, as you just pick 2 contrasting natures from a list, come up with a name, a motivation, this is what drives your character forwards, and an oath. Oaths are entirely separate from motivations and represent a moral line, whether selfless or selfish, that your character doesn't want to cross. In a meta sense, you're setting your motivation and your oath both to define your own idea of the character, but also to help the other players know how they can tempt you or test you. Once you've worked out how all the characters relate to each other, then you launch straight into it, as one of the players sets the first scene, says who's there, and what's happening. Once the scene is done, every player then applauds the character they wish, and that applause helps to encourage more interesting stuff in the future. It wouldn't be Shakespeare, though, if there weren't a few bells and whistles allowing you to fight duels, deliver soliloquies and asides, and even reappear as a ghost. These rules, though, are small and unobtrusive, helping you create a great story in the Shakespearean mould, but never getting in the way, with one exception. If you're ever stuck for what to do, then you just call line, and you take the first suggestion provided by your fellow players. Is that just common sense? Yes, of course, but like everything else, it's included in the game in a way that perfectly complements the theatrical atmosphere. The game is flexible in the number of players, allowing as many as you like, but I found it works best with 4 or 5 players, where every player gets to create 2 characters each, a principal and a secondary character. In this way, you can cavort around playing a fool, or pompous around as Toby Belch, or be too cunning to be understood as Dogberry for a few scenes, and then return to your Ophelia, Viola, or Romeo, and still have your tragic, unrequited, forbidden, or just plain kinky love. The game ends once all the principals are, in true Shakespearean fashion, either married or dead. These ending criteria can lead to a little awkward matrimonial negotiations at times, but it's well worth finding a happy ending if you're playing a comedy, or the appropriately grisly end for your tragic hero if you're not. Forsooth is a great story game, providing just what you need to enjoy hours of mock Shakespearean fun in an evening. We had a great time with it, running far later than we ever intended. Our game was long but well worthwhile. Check out the transcript with loads more notes and tips about playing Forsooth, linked in the comments section below. You'll find in this transcript a complete record of how we came up with our characters from scratch. However, if you want to skip ahead to the first scene, then the setting we created is that of medieval Scotland. Sir William Dumbarton, a weary crusader absent 15 years, has finally returned to the seat of his forefathers. While he's been away, however, foul deeds have been committed. His title has been usurped and stolen by another, and his daughter, an innocent, believes that the usurper is his true father, returned early. Marry, nuncle, and by my troth, you don't want to miss the tale of the false crusader.